Okay, hit that new joint with the grease gun. Made sure I get grease squeezing out of the seals there so that I know I get good grease coverage inside that bearing. And now I'm going to just use the wire wheel attachment and give this spline shaft on here a quick whiz. And then I'll apply a little coat of grease on it. Now a little grease on the splines. I just want to do this so that it doesn't seize together as quickly, in case I need to take it apart in the near future. Okay, I've reinstalled this retaining bolt, the long one that goes through here. Next, I'm going to go check my fit of my plastic bearings. Okay, so here's the original bearing that I put on the other side, the 104-15174 bearing. This is the larger of the two that came in that kit, and it's pretty sloppy. So you can see when this gap is closed up, it's got a lot of play. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try the other bearing, the 173, which was the smaller of the two, which was too tight on the original OD of the groove on the other side, which was in good condition. But now that this one's been filed down, maybe that one's going to be a better fit. So I'll check that out next. Well, that's quite a bit tighter. See, that's tight right there, and that gap is fairly decent right there. I know there is some gap there when the thing's clipped into the housing, but I'm just not convinced that that's going to be enough. I'll have to look at the other one and see how much gap is in that one. I don't know if you can see it, but down in there is the gap. It's a pretty small gap. So if I were to try and make the gap as small as that on that other one I just tried on there, it would be way too tight. So I'm going to have to go with the larger bearing and just deal with the fact that it's now going to be looser than what I would wish. Okay, so I put a light coating of grease on the groove first, and then I install it, and the chamfered or bevel side of the bearing faces the rest of the guard, so that when the guard slides on to this way, it's going to engage that and get locked in. And so I guess I could install the half of the shield. Never done one of these before, so I'm not exactly sure how to handle it. Well, let's see. Alright, looks like a no-brainer that this is going to be, the shield is going to be too long and needs to be cut down. Now that I know the PTO shaft is the right length, really all I should have to do is cut each half of the shield down to the length of each half of the PTO shaft, and I should have a winning combination. So I've got to figure out where the end of this shaft is inside this tube, and so I'll just stick a tape measure down there until I hit the end of it, and then cut that much off. Okay, so I've just determined that I need to take 21 inches off of this side, so I'm going to take the guard off, which is just a matter of popping this lever right here and then sliding this over. So I'm going to have to put the camera down, I think, to do it. Maybe not. There we go. And that comes right off. Alright, so this side's finished. I cut it, and I cut it with a hacksaw because being that, you know, this $80 guard, you know, for that kind of money, obviously it's a very, very tough plastic, so you need a titanium blade. No, I'm just kidding. Reality is it's just plastic. Cuts easily with a hacksaw. However, if you notice, I didn't do a very good job of cutting it straight, so luckily I'm glad I cut the female side of the guard first, because that'll be completely covered by the overlap of the male part of the guard. But now when I cut the male part of the guard, I'm going to cut it in a fashion that's going to guarantee me a 90-degree clean cut. And in the past, I've used my chop saw to cut this kind of thing. But what I find with the chop saw is it's great for like PVC pipe. I've been able to get away with a carbide tip blade doing it that way, but with the thin-walled stuff, like for instance cutting central vac pipe, I remember with the thin-walled stuff there is a possibility of chipping, and you can get some pretty nasty chips on the end there that really kind of ruin the finish. I really don't want this thing to look kind of crappy after spending all the money for it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this on my bandsaw. That'll give me a nice clean 90-degree cut. So I'm going to measure this up next. Okay, now I've cut the female side of the shield, and I got a nice square looking cut. And what I'm going to do now is, before I assemble this, I'm going to do one more modification, and that's I'm going to drill a hole. I want an access hole on the shield. It's going to have to go through both halves of the shield, and what I want that access hole for is so I can get to that grease nipple right in there, which is for the actual where the two halves of the shaft go together and slide up against each other. That's the grease fitting for that, and I want to make sure I'm able to grease that without having to remove the whole shield every time I want to do it. So I'm going to take a measurement from the edge here in to that nipple, and that'll give me the center point for where I want to drill a hole. And first I'm going to drill a hole through the male part of the shield. I've selected a fairly large, about a 1-inch Forstner bit. The Forstner bit's nice because it'll make a nice clean cut through this plastic, and I selected one that's 1 inch because that way, if I'm not exactly perfect with my measurement there, I'm going to still make sure I can get the nozzle of the grease gun in there without too much trouble. And there we go. Now I'm going to make a measurement from this shoulder right here to the center line of that hole, and we're going to call it 10 7/8 inches. And the reason why I want to do that is so that when I slide this shield in place, I'll be able to take a measurement from here to 10 7/8 inches, and that's going to tell me where to mark this shield for another hole. Okay, I just went to assemble everything and found out that I made an error here, which is that I've got to have that shaft be a little bit proud of the outer shield here. Otherwise, it's really hard to get it to engage the female part here. It probably wouldn't hurt to have actually that female side also be just flush with or just proud with that edge. So I'm going to cut both these back. Alright, now there's the guard and shaft assembly installed. And now that I'm looking at it, I guess it'll be a little safer, but obviously still got some shortcomings, mainly on this side here. I mean, this whole area right in here is completely danger, danger. Stay away. But better than nothing on there, which is what I had before. Now I do have one more step to do, which is I'm going to have to measure off of here to that reference point that I indicated earlier, and then make a mark, and then I'm going to have to remove this assembly again to take this shield, to take the outer shield off the inner shield, so that when I drill my hole, I won't be drilling through both of them at the same time, because I'm never going to hit the same hole that I already put on this side. So I don't want to have a big mess underneath there. So that's what I got to do next. Alright, so I made my measurement from the shoulder here to 10 7/8 inches right there, and now I'm going to take the outer piece off, which involves taking the whole shaft off again, and drill my second hole. Alright, there's my new hole. Time to reassemble and see how I did. This time, before I reassemble it though, I'm going to put a liberal coating of grease on this end of the shaft, which I had cleaned up completely because when I was working on that U-joint, I didn't want to have to keep handling that dirty shaft. So now I'm going to put a liberal coat on there to give it a good start, and then of course I'm still going to grease it through the fitting. Okay, now I've got it all reassembled, and now we can see that if I rotate my outer shaft, I can line it up with the inner shaft, and then I can rotate the two together and it'll line up so that I can get to my grease fitting right here. And I'll grease that up a little now. Now I had already greased up the U-joints, so the last thing left to grease is right here where these latches click in to keep the bearings captive. That actually is the grease fitting for the plastic bearing, so I want to make sure I get the two of those greased up. Alright, so my PTO shield is installed, And the only thing I had left, the only question I had left in my mind was how to treat whether or not to leave this so that it has the ability to freely rotate. I know on a lot of shields that I saw on the internet from other manufacturers, there is the ability to have a chain that actually attaches to the shield. It's a short, light chain with a clip on it. And the idea is that you then would clip the chain to something nearby on the tractor that would keep the guard from being able to just freely rotate and would force the bearings to do their job and basically let the shaft rotate within the stationary guard. Now, whether or not that's absolutely necessary, I don't know. Again, the Weasler manufacturer of the bearings doesn't make any recommendation with it. There was no paperwork that came with the housing. It's pretty much one of these things where they expect you to already know what you're doing before you put this thing on. And you know what? If I was raised on a farm by my dad, which I was, but not the kind of farm like out in the Midwest, where there's probably an 8-year-old kid who can do all of this and make me look like a fool doing it. But that's not the case. So I do notice that it does appear on these shields that these points right here look like an optimal point to hook a chain to. So if I wanted to, I could hook a chain there. Tractor Supply does sell a chain kit to actually make up your own chain hook. And oddly enough, again, ridiculously overpriced, $20 for the thing. I actually had a little piece of very light dog leash chain with some hooks on it that I had recently just about thrown out. And then when I started thinking about that, I kept it. So somewhere around here, if I can find it, I've got something I can use to fabricate my own little tether chains to keep this from spinning. But for now, I'm going to leave it free spinning until I get maybe a little more advice on whether or not I should even bother with that.